everyone, welcome to the 404th episode of the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham.
And your co-host, Kevin Toffel.
And we have a special show for you. We are broadcasting live from the Venetian here at CES, the Consumer Electronics Show 2023. Oh my gosh. This is our first time back since the pandemic. We were last here in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And
where we probably picked up COVID and didn't even realize it. Yes.
No. I totally realized when I had COVID. But yes, it was in the air. I don't know what else is in the air here, but it's a lot. All right. So we have a lot to talk about this week. And not even all of it, because the show actually doesn't start until the day this goes live. So the show actually starts on Thursday, which is a little late, and we'll talk about that. But we are going to be talking about on this week's episode a bunch of stuff, starting with Matter is everywhere here at CES. And Amazon has some really interesting news on their sidewalk front. They have some interesting news about voice interoperability. We can debate if it's interoperable or not, but we will. We're also going to be talking about Home Assistant, which is not here at the show to my knowledge, but has some really cool news. We've got some new gear from Ring, updates on the ADT Nest deal, new products from Sync, new products from Nanoleaf, new products from Moen, the end of some products from Arlo, and we're going to be talking about end-of-lifing things and good ways to go about it, and a bunch of new stuff they're trying to build into your home. And we'll talk about if this is a great idea or not. We also have our guest this week is Jimmy Chu, the CEO of Nanoleaf.
Yay, Jimmy. I got to meet Jimmy for the first time last night, so what a guy.
He's a delight.
Yeah,
I love Jimmy.
Yeah.
So he's going to be our guest. You're going to want to stay tuned to hear his visions on the future of Nanoleaf, the future of lighting, and some of the products they've launched, and a little update on Matter. And then before we get started on everything, let's hear from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Silicon Labs. Silicon Labs is a leader in secure, intelligent wireless technology for a more connected world. Their integrated hardware and software platform, intuitive development tools, and robust support make them an ideal long-term partner in building advanced industrial, commercial, home, and life applications. Silicon Labs makes it easy for developers to solve complex wireless challenges throughout the product lifecycle and to get to market quickly with innovative solutions that transform industries, grow economies, and improve lives. Learn more at scilabs.com. Okay, first up, this CES feels a lot smaller. They say it's 100,000 people.
Yeah, they always, in my opinion, I'll say slightly, just to be generous, overestimate how many people are expected here. Just from my perspective, having come here since 2005, except for the pandemic years, I have never had a zero cab line at the airport. I did this week. I never saw empty baggage carousels, like not even in use. I did this week. Definitely fewer people so far, fewer people walking around with the CES badges. We typically see tons of people with badges. I just haven't seen them yet. And I know this show is a little different because the New Year's holiday was Sunday. CES, we usually fly in on a Monday, and then they have one press day on a Tuesday, and then the show floor opens on Wednesday through Saturday. This year, it's all pushed back. There's two press days, Tuesday and Wednesday, and the show floor is open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah, that's 4 days of the show floor being open. Usually it's open for 5 days, and it usually opens Wednesday when we're recording this.
Right.
We went to CES Unveiled, which is, they do these things where you go and companies pay to show off their products to journalists in like a smaller arena.
It's like a mini event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we went and it wasn't packed, and they actually had extra show floor space, which
Yes.
I thought that is unusual.
This is a trend that's been happening over the past 5-ish years, in my opinion. Companies want to have their own events, manage their own messaging. Now, there are many more virtual events that's more generally accepted. I mean, I said it before, and not that you all care, but I think CES is dying a slow, painful death because it's just not as much need for it. I think it has importance and relevance, but
I like seeing things. I mean,
Agreed.
that's the value here is I like seeing things. So let's talk about some of the things we saw. First up, Matter is on every bulletin board. So far, we've seen tons of Matter news, and we'll just go down some of it. Okay, so Lutron. I'm just putting this first because I love Lutron, and they haven't said anything about Matter. They're still not saying anything about Matter. Instead, Lutron came and they showed off some brand new, colorful rocker switches, which frankly, meh.
So no updates on the Lutron bridges being updated or new bridges or anything like that.
Nothing on that front.
Disappointing.
But on the Nanoleaf front, lots of stuff. Jimmy is going to talk about it in the interview, but broadly speaking, they have a new line of, they call them Sense Control. These are light switches. They come in either wired or wireless, and they are a way of controlling your Nanoleaf lights. In the interview later on, you'll discover that they're going to open that up, and so maybe one day we could control all of our lights with this switch. And Kevin, there were some things I liked about it, but what did you think of this thing?
Well, so yeah, I held the switch in my hand, for example. I liked the design. I mean, it's typical Nanoleaf, clean-looking design. I really liked, it's almost like a mouse scroll wheel in the very middle of it going vertically for dimming. It had that same feel of a scroll wheel, but maybe a little more refined, but that's really what it looked like to me. Multiple buttons on there, and they're programmable, so you can say this button turns lights on and off, this button changes light colors or to this light color or this scene. Yeah, overall looks nice. And I love the fact that there's a wireless version because not everybody may have the required wires or gang boxes to do what they want with these.
And there's sensors in there. So there's a PIR sensor. Eventually they'll have better sensors, but for now it's PIR. So you can so the lights become smarter. And so part of this is part of what they're calling NALA, the Nanoleaf Autonomous Learning Assistant. The Sense Plus controls in NALA are going to be available in Q3 of this year, and we don't have pricing on any of this. Nanoleaf is also offering basically an entertainment thing. So a TV screen, mirror camera, and light strips it's kind of like your Hue.
Your Hue plays sync. Yeah, syncing up the colors and the lights with the TV content. Okay.
And then, and this is kind of fun, Nanoleaf Skylight. What they're doing is they're putting basically blocky Nanoleaf lights that integrate into your ceiling. They're kind of like the Nanoleaf square tiles, but they have more depth to them. And those will have color and all kinds of stuff. And you wire it directly into your ceiling. And this is part of a trend that we'll talk about a little bit later in the show, which is, are we ready to build smart products into our homes? Like literally. And then they're Nanoleaf Essentials. So that's all the Nanoleaf stuff. That is actually the bulbs and light strips. We talked about it before. They're coming in Q1. The rest of this stuff will come later. Okay. So that's Nanoleaf's news and Matter news. But other Matter news is SwitchBot. SwitchBot is adding Matter in March with a new hub. So you're going to have to buy this new hub, and they'll have some fun new products.
Yeah, it's possible that they may upgrade some of the older SwitchBot products to Matter. I was told it can happen with an OTA or over-the-air update, but I don't think it's been committed to that. So keep that in mind if you're in the market for SwitchBot anything. I would maybe wait a month or two.
And back to lights, Govee, they make lights, light strips, that sort of thing.
Yeah. They have a new product that they worked, it's part of the Works with Google program, and that is a new Matter smart bulb. Not like a line of products or anything, just a new Matter smart bulb.
Just one. And then Eve has some updates.
We've been waiting to hear about Eve products on the shelf with Matter, having certified products instead of doing what I did and upgrading the older products, which is a little sketchy still.
Oh, we should mention, because some people, we should have clarified this for everyone. If you want to buy the Eve stuff today, you have to have something from Apple to add it to your network and get it on there so you can then make the update.
Right.
So apparently some people bought it not realizing that.
The issue or the reason for that is because Eve has been HomeKit only their entire product lifetime. So to get the upgrade, you have to set it up on an Apple HomeKit environment to begin with. So I probably could have been more clear about that. I explained what I used, but I didn't explain what you needed. So that's a totally valid issue there. But in any case, that problem goes away by the end of Q1 because the Eve Door and Window, Eve Energy, and Eve Motion all arrive with Matter certification. So you'll be able to get them off the shelf with Matter, no upgrade or anything like that. They will have an upgrade kit for their Eve Motion blinds, which came out last year. So that will be upgraded in the near future as well.
And then for TV people, Samsung SmartThings Zigbee and Thread modules will be built into Samsung products, including their TVs and some of their appliances. And also on the Samsung SmartThings side, they have announced a bunch of new appliance stuff. And most of the smart appliance stuff, I'm not like, woo! But they did announce something called the Smart Things Energy AI program. And the AI Energy Mode is a program that's going to be on all of Samsung's new, big, fancy, expensive appliances. And the idea here is that you're going to be pulling in information about their electricity consumption and then tying that back to some sort of energy monitoring and management service in the home. Their hope is that Smart Things will provide that. So they'll pull in data about like your electrical charger and all of this other stuff through Smart Things. I don't know if that's going to happen, but that's their goal. And the idea is that, like, hey, if you can, maybe they'll raise the temperature in your fridge to save energy if necessary. Or maybe they'll take your dryer to a slightly lower setting if energy savings need to be happening. And it's worth noting that they see the energy savings goals coming from both utilities and consumers. And this is something we've been talking about for a while. This is a trend that we've seen definitely materialize into the real life here at this show. And a lot of that is because of climate change issues. It is also because of electrification in the home. So we're seeing people put more things in the home that require more electricity, like heat pumps or EVs. And when you do that, you're maxing out your home's electrical panel. And so instead of replacing everything, they're like, hey, let's actually just
be more efficient.
Yeah, like use what we have better, because there's almost no time that you're like, I must have everything running all out all at once. Anyway, so that's worthy and big news. And I think Matter will make that more interesting, not this year, but next year, because energy management is one of the things they're going to be pulling into that. There's also the HCA, which is the Home Connectivity Alliance, which is this big, like we talked to them last year. They have actually done energy management is like their first big project. So all of these companies like LG, Samsung, GE Haier, GE Appliances, it's owned by Haier. They're all Train. They're all in Resideo. They're all working together to create this energy management platform. So that's actually really cool. Okay. So back to Matter. Samsung Smart Things. They're going to have Zigbee and Thread capability in their TVs and devices.
The whole idea is so that you don't have to add a dongle or anything like, some other item with a chip in it. It's just going to be built into a lot of the TVs and other appliances, which makes sense. They're always connected and they're always powered, I should say, and they have connectivity as well.
All right. So let's talk about one of my favorite things. Also a big trend from last year that didn't really happen because I was too early.
Is it happening now?
Sort of. It's Amazon Sidewalk. So Amazon is showing off 4 companies that are using Amazon Sidewalk. This past year, Amazon Sidewalk, they turned it on in June. The functionality, it is a low-power wide area network built with your Echo devices and Ring devices. So you've got, if you turn it on and you actually have to opt out of it, and people have, but you're basically creating this big wireless area network that is using Bluetooth or LoRa. It is not the interoperable LoRaWAN.
Right.
It is just LoRa. But it's using those radios to provide connectivity to things all around, up to a mile distant. And the idea here is if the internet goes out, these things still have connectivity because maybe someone somewhere has...
within a mile has...
Yeah, their internet has not gone out.
Right.
I mean, it is what it is. I think it's a great idea because there's plenty of devices that I have that are out of Wi-Fi range, out of Bluetooth range, and I could have like my mailbox sensor or my open-close gate sensor. Like there's lots of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So they're actually, for the first time at this show, they're announcing they have 4 products that are using the LoRa capability. So Tile and Level Locks have been using Bluetooth on the Sidewalk network, but these are LoRa devices. And they run the gamut from like a gas sensor for, utilities to make sure gas isn't leaking outside of the home, to water and freeze detection devices in the home, and a modem for your solar inverters to track that sort of information. And home sensors from a company called, the company is Browen, but it's Mary IoT is the platform. This is exciting. And the big news for any developer out there is that the first half of 2023, they're going to open up Sidewalk for everyone. Right now, you have to apply, and then Amazon's like, I like your idea. You can work with us. So they're going to make it easy. They're also working with several chip providers, Silicon Labs, Nordic, TI, and Semtech, to build chips that you basically just stick this hardware in your device and and you have to authenticate on the AWS cloud, and then poof, you are connected.
Your sidewalk, yeah.
It's making it really easy because let me tell you, like using LoRaWAN, still very hard. So this is a big deal. The connectivity side of this is free. You have to use AWS.
Right. You're kind of locked in there. And you're also hoping that Amazon Echo device owners are opting in, or not opting out, I should say, because that's the whole backbone of the data up to the cloud. I'm still a little leery, but this is a positive step. And I'm curious to see, once it's opened up, how many bigger names, not to slight these products or companies, actually consider using Sidewalk.
Well, and it's possible that after it gets big enough, Amazon will create some interoperability plays. But I agree with you. Like, going into AWS is like signing an open-ended contract to like possibly spend a lot of money, and you may not realize it. But it's really important to have really cheap networks, because then you can put sensors on things that, like, Amazon's vision for this is really compelling. Like, their idea is like, hey, you know how like we have water monitoring systems in our house? What if we just had a toilet that was like, hey, I'm leaking or not? And the company that makes the toilet, you know, does a deal with like a utility provider, and then you scan it with a QR code on the toilet, you scan it into your phone, and then it'll tell you things like, hey, I'm leaking or not. And you don't have to have all of this other infrastructure around it, because Amazon is paying for providing that.
And then also onboarding of devices onto a network. I mean, if it's taken care of by Amazon, so to speak, that removes a barrier. I agree.
And, you know, things like ownership. Anyway, it's exciting. I really want this to succeed. I would have loved for it to succeed as more of an open-ended thing, but yes, I will take what I can get on this front, because I think it's going to be really innovative. Okay. And here's where I say that maybe if this is big, Amazon will open it up somewhat. And by that, I'm talking about Amazon has announced several interoperability deals on voice. So this is Madam A, their voice assistant. They did a deal with Panasonic Automotive to basically let you use Madam A, or I don't want to say her name.
Or Apple's digital assistant.
Apple's digital assistant. We don't really have to talk about that one very often.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, so you'll be able to use either digital assistant with this new collaboration in the Panasonic in-vehicle entertainment systems, which is nice. It reminds me of how Sonos originally brought Google and Amazon together in that product for voice.
Yeah. And then they also did an integration with Josh AI, which is I call it a Cydia-style integrator. It's a fancy, you go to an integrator and Josh's voice assistant controls your home, and it's a good voice assistant. But now you can use Josh's voice assistant or, again, Amazon. They've just worked together on that. So yay them. Also in voice assistants, and this is for all of you open source fans out there, Home Assistant is, well, Kevin, you tell them.
Home Assistant, I said this right before the show, I give this product and this community a ton of credit for building a very compelling and viable service and product to take control of your smart home, you know, and it's all community driven. And that really speaks to me. And it's just been fantastic to see it grow and gain new features. And the goal for 2023 with Home Assistant is to let users control Home Assistant in whatever language they want. So they're kind of creating their own voice interface, I guess.
They are creating their own voice interface. They are working with a developer who's done other open source voice programs. So you'll be able to talk to it just Home Assistant, just like you talk to Madam A or Lady S or Hey G.
Were you thinking of Mike Hansen and his Raspy project?
Yes.
Yes. Mike, he's joined Nabu Casa, which is the company that I know they offer service like connectivity services for remote access to Home Assistant. I don't know if they own Home Assistant. No, it's just a partnership. Yeah. So Mike has joined Nabu Casa. He's working full time on voice in Home Assistant. They're, again, being community driven. They're looking for people to contribute their own voice utterances in their own languages to help build this up. That's the way they do it. I mean, they work together with all the users, and it makes for just a very compelling product.
All right. And now let's talk about products. So many new product launches. We're just going to run through a bunch of them. All right. Ring has a bunch of new cameras. Cameras are everywhere. Ring's car cam, that is finally out. It will be available for pre-order starting this week.
Yeah, by the time you've heard this.
Yeah, by the time I was like, wait, by the time you've heard this.
I'm still in that 2022 mode.
Yeah, I'm like, where are we? I don't have costs on that right now.
$129.99. Oh, that's the peephole cam.
Yeah, so they're also doing the Ring peephole cam. This is like all the video doorbell features, but it's installed over your peephole. And so you can add
see
this
people through your peephole.
So yeah, this is like if you're renting, basically. So that one is $129.99.
Also available by the time you hear this. We have not seen this yet. I hope to, but we have not seen this yet.
Also, in camera news, ADT has integrated more deeply with Google. So ADT has been working with Google for quite some time. Google invested money in ADT, and they're deepening their partnership. So the ADT Plus app can now control your Nest cams and thermostats. And originally you were using the Google Home app, but now you can bring that into ADT.
So I was scratching my head a little bit over this one, only because Google has, controlled that Google Home experience and the Nest experience through its own apps. And now ADT, they've got their own way to do this with Google products. And I get that. They have their app. I guess it's a good thing to see more openness from Google, but I was surprised to see this.
I mean, it's probably the reason they did this particular deal. I mean, Google also, they spent real money investing in.
Yeah, I'm sure it was part of the deal and part of that investment, and they gave up a little bit of that control.
Yeah, because ADT has the monitored security thing, so they have to make sure. And I actually talked to the CTO at ADT about this because we're seeing more of these integrations and also things like Matter. Like with Matter, you could pull in like a security system from a bunch of disparate parts. But ADT is also doing a life safety announcement as part of this. And when you think about life safety, you want to control as much of that as possible. So I think it's kind of a really interesting partnership because Google's obviously got to give up something to give ADT you can't just be best effort, right?
No. You don't want a third party, if ADT doesn't respond to some security issue because it's Google's fault, that nobody's going to care that it's Google's fault. They're going to blame ADT. So yeah, I get it in certain instances. You've got to have that reliability. Okay.
All right, more lighting news. Goodness, so many lights. By the way, y'all, can't wait for Matter because I want all my lights to sort of work together. Mm-hmm. And right now I think I have like 5 or 6 different apps for that. But
same.
If you're like us, or maybe you just have one, and this one is GE Lighting, or Savant, or Sync. Savant bought GE Lighting, which owns the Sync brand. So Sync has news about its lights. New products.
Right. So they have their dynamic effects indoor and outdoor light strips that are now available starting at $89.99 with extensions. The dynamic effects, I guess, are kind of like a scene kind of thing, which makes sense. And that's good because the Sync experience has been very bare bones to me so far. In general, I haven't been able to do too much with it, so that's good. So they have some new Reveal HD Plus wafer downlights. They say they're industry-leading brightness, but I don't know how bright they are. But they are 16 million colors and adjustable white colors and temperatures. Plus the Reveal approach, which I actually like that when the Reveal bulbs first came out, 15 years ago.
They were nice.
They were nice. They're still nice. I still occasionally get some for certain bulbs. I don't know how it makes it work, but I just like the look of things under a Reveal light.
The colors of things are nice.
Yes. Now, these won't be available till Q3, so no other information there. And then, hey, it's Matter.
It's Matter. They're bringing Matter compatibility to their product lineup throughout this coming year. So the full color direct connect smart bulb and the Sync indoor smart plug will be the first products to transition to Matter. And then they just say more are coming later. And the Matter compatible products are going to replace the previous versions as they hit store shelves. So I don't know if you're going to have to sell through all your old stuff first.
Yep. So if you have older Sync stuff, it's not like you're going to have Matter.
Basically, they say previously produced Sync products are not planned to receive retroactive Matter updates at this time. And honestly, this makes sense. Based on like the Eve experience, I would not welcome this. And Jimmy's going to talk about it later on. He talks about how at Nanoleaf they had made everything Matter ready, but then they really got cold feet and they were like, we're not going to update our older products to Matter. And then everyone was like, what? No. And so now they are.
I still have a few original sync bulbs. I'm trying to remember.
Those were the Bluetooth bulbs.
That's exactly
they
right.
Those.
And that's why that's not getting any Matter upgrade. I thought, oh, if it's Wi-Fi, you could do, no. Okay.
I think it's just a pain.
Then you know what? Having gone through the pain, just with a few products, and again, I'm not faulting the transition that Eva's put in place here because this is a brand new standard and there's a lot of moving parts and all that. So, but I wouldn't recommend it yet to anybody. If you can buy an out of the box Matter certified product, it's obviously much more enjoyable and quicker.
Now, another product we saw that was like unabashedly like, screw Matter, screw interop. This was the Moen. Moen has launched a sprinkler system to work within their Moen and Flow ecosystem. So their sprinkler system and soil sensors seem cool, right? So the pricing on these is actually really nice. The Moen sprinkler 16-zone controller is going to be $234.99, and an 8-zone controller is $179.99. And then you can buy soil sensors. So I set my father-in-law up with a Ratio, which he still uses and loves, actually, a sprinkler system several years ago. And we wanted to pull in weather data so it wouldn't run when it was raining.
Mm-hmm.
And we also wanted to integrate it with soil sensors. And there was nothing at the time that really made that easy. Like, you could do a soil sensor integration, but you had to like hack your way through it. Like, it was literally a hack-a-day project. And then with the weather, the local weather was not local enough to really help with that problem. So, but he still likes it. I mean, it's still lovely to have a easily programmable irrigation system. But Moen is like, you know what? We're going to use a proprietary version of LoRa, because long distance, outside of Wi-Fi, great. And you can use our soil sensors with our sprinkler system, and yeah.
The sprinkler controller, actually, this gets back to like the ownership of the home kind of aspect, and the fact that this is a closed Moen system, essentially. When they own Flow,
which is a water leak detection system thing.
Right, water monitoring and so on. And they're pitching this as an all-inclusive product. And because the sprinklers work with Flow, you can reduce your irrigation water use by up to 30% and save, 15,000 gallons of water a year, et cetera. So this is still one of those walled gardens, not to make a pun on the outdoors there, but,
Lovely pun.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have feelings about this.
Yes.
We probably will talk about them. Okay, other news. Arlo. This is not CES news. This is based on an email I got because I bought some Arlo cameras in 2015, and now they are dying. They're dying. Arlo is announcing an end-of-life policy for several sections of his cameras. The oldest were they launched in 2014, which is a really good life. That's like 8 years.
That's not bad.
9 years. And then the most recent ones, though, they were last discontinued in 2018, which that's only 4 or 5 years. That's not great.
Right. And these aren't inexpensive cameras either. That's
no. And they had their own base station and everything. And
right.
I loved them because they were really good cameras. We only put them out when we're out of town. But my husband was kind of bummed about this because they still work.
Yeah. And they will still work. What you're losing is your 7-day cloud storage, other features, firmware updates, email notifications. So you're losing some key functionality, and a lot of people are not too happy about this.
Yeah. And, Arlo has been transitioning to a software as a service business model. So these cameras are probably partially like getting rid of these helps with that because there was onboard storage. I'm not happy about it either because it works. And that's what drives me nuts.
And now it doesn't.
Yeah. I'm like, and
it's been a crapshoot. We buy and test a lot of things, and we buy our own stuff, obviously. And I'm thinking, okay, do I trust this brand? We shouldn't have to think that way.
Well, even if you trust the brand, I mean, Arlo switched their business model kind of a couple of years ago.
You don't know when that's going to happen, if it's going to happen.
And the other thing is, when you buy this stuff, it would be good to know. I am spending this much money on something that is going to last for 5 years. If you had told me that I was going to spend, I think it was like $469 on these cameras, I mean, back in 2015, and you said, hey, Stacy, these are going to last for 7 years. $500 on a 7-year investment? I don't know. Like, based on how we use them, I don't think I would have gone with like Wise.
Yeah.
Because, $30 to stick cameras around my house.
Right. Well, I'm really curious what you think of the return on investment of the next product.
Yeah, so that gets us into this idea of, and we're seeing this as a trend, I'm probably going to write about it in the newsletter, that I've seen so far here at the show, which is the built-in smart home. And I say this because we've seen lots of like water systems, we saw like the Moen stuff, and actually changing out your sprinkler irrigation system is not hard.
No.
But, most people don't want to do it when they move into a new home. And talking to people who are selling like water monitoring kits to builders, or Schneider Electric was showing off a very cool breaker box and EV charging solution that helps do load management. Very smart, very fun. That is all going to be built into new homes. And the other product that we saw here is Masonite's door. They announced this last year. It's a door with a Ring doorbell and a smart lock built in. So this door, basically, it's a door with power and the appropriate size slots for smart locks and connected doorbell. The novelty here is the power. And this is going to cost you $6,500.
Oh, no, it's not, because I won't be buying one. But this year, you'll be able to at Home Depot.
Yes. This is going to be a renovation or a new build thing. And I know that when I talked to Corey Cerise, who was doing this project last year after it was announced, he was like, eventually we'd like to have slots. He's like, the key is the power. And eventually we'd like to have slots for like a universal doorbell. But Ring is just the first partner they're working with. And that's fine. But I don't know if I bought a home, we don't have the interoperability. I mean, let's say we've got our water management is Moen. Maybe we've got smart things, let's say Schneider Electric breaker. So We've got our Schneider Electric managing our energy system that's going to tie into like my HVAC system, which might be another app.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got my door that now is going to have an app.
Well, yes, but as expensive as this is, if you're going to, live in your home 20, 30 years, maybe it's okay to have a door with power built in, because maybe you'll be able to swap out the locks in the future to other locks because the power's already there.
Right. And see, maybe, but right now we don't have interop and sizing for these things.
Nope.
And that's where, Arlo is discontinuing a doorbell.
Mm-hmm.
So, all the smart doorbells I had have only lasted for about 3 years. That feels like the life of a smart doorbell, maybe 4 years or 5 years, if you're not like me. So if you think about that, tying that to a door is an iffy proposition. Also, if you're designing these products, changes in batteries and new technologies will make it smaller and more efficient. So you don't want to walk yourself into some sort of big hole in the door.
Right. Because you may not need it, but you're stuck with it at that point.
Yeah. So I don't think we're ready for the built-in smart home, but man, the industry, they want to get us there.
Yeah, a lot of the startups we talked to at CES Unveiled, when asking about, where will we buy this, et cetera. Well, we're working with, real estate agents, we're working with home builders and so on. So there's a trend there, but I agree with you. I'm not ready to do that. Even if I were buying a new home today, no.
And we're early adopters. We're crazy. Yeah. All right. So that is enough CES news. Well, not necessarily, because we'll be back next week with the stuff we actually saw on the show floor, because we haven't actually gone to the show floor yet because it's not open.
They won't let us in.
Exactly. But it's now time for the Internet of Things podcast hotline, the segment of the show where we talk to you. The hotline is sponsored by Silicon Labs. Their Wi-Fi portfolio is designed specifically for the IoT, where multi-protocol RF performance, ultra-low power consumption, and fast time to market are critical. You can learn more about Silicon Labs' low-power Wi-Fi hardware, software, tools, and development kits at scilabs.com. And it is now the beginning of January, so we have a winner to announce. And our winner gets the Flick buttons and hub. I'm always like, what do we call this?
You have these.
I have these. I love them. I click my way through all kinds of fun things. And our winner last year, technically, for December is John, who actually, we answered your question last week and we're coming back to it. It's an evergreen question.
Yes.
John, congratulations. You will get this. Our January winner will get a Nanoleaf Shapes kit, a small Nanoleaf Shapes starter kit, the little tiny triangles. It's very cute. You'll love it. So give us a call at 512-623-7424 and you will be entered to win. And now, it is time for our voicemail. And normally we answer your questions, but last week, I don't know if we just didn't say this.
I think, and I wrote this up in a post too about, what's the range of Thread devices, which was John's question. And I had alluded to, you want to spread those devices out because the range of Thread radios is kind of like Zigbee.
And it's a mesh network.
Mesh network and so on. But I didn't make a distinction that is very important to make. And our caller, James, actually shares that information with you guys today.
Plus, an additional perspective on Wi-Fi versus Thread.
Yes.
So y'all listen to James. This is all true. And
very useful information.
And useful information. And thank you, James. Let's hear it.
Hello, Stacy and Kevin. This is James in Louisville. I was calling to really just give an addendum to the voicemail from Roger the other day. Just some clarification y'all might want to add about the Thread mesh networks is that battery-powered end devices do not extend the mesh. I mean, yes, technically they extend the mesh, but they don't act as relays. Only the plugged-in devices will act as relays. So you can buy as many battery-powered devices, and it does not help the signal strength anywhere in your property. You need to get smart plugs or light switches or other things that act as relays. And with Matter, I'm honestly not sure how many relays will be, or if it's going to be more a case of lots and lots of border routers. Relays would be better for your Wi-Fi network because they would be transmitting, on side channels effectively and bypassing Wi-Fi until they get to that hub or that one border router. If you have a whole bunch of border routers, well, you're going to have a whole lot of extra points on your Wi-Fi network that are acting as little routers out into the Thread mesh. It'll improve your Thread network, but which one is going to be better is what we're going to find out. So I hope y'all have good luck with Matter.
All right. Y'all are so smart. Yep. I love y'all.
Yep.
So if you want more CES news, check it out in the newsletter. And that concludes this segment of the show, but please stay tuned for our guest, Jimmy Chu.
Jimmy!
Who is the CEO of Nanoleaf. He's talking about some of their new stuff, Matter, and much more, plus the future of lighting. It's very exciting. And if you'd like to sponsor the Internet of Things podcast, you can give Andrew a shout at andrew@stacyoniot.com. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and today's guest is Jimmy Chu, who is the CEO and co-founder of Nanoleaf. Hello, Jimmy. How are you today?
Hey, Stacey. Thanks for having me on the show.
I am super excited. I know people tease me. I'm always super excited, but I've had Nanoleaf gear and loved it. Gosh, since like 2017, 2016. When did y'all start this whole shebang? I'm trying to remember.
So we officially had our 10-year anniversary. So we've been around for about 10 years. But 10 years ago, we started off as a Kickstarter project. So we launched the product on Kickstarter, and 10 years later, here we are. Never thought we'd get here, but it's been quite the journey.
Awesome. Congratulations. There's sadly, in the last 10 years, I've tried lots of devices and many of them have not made it. So kudos to y'all. I will say, and we'll talk about this in the show, but I've always said to people that Nanoleaf is, to me, it's more like art than functional lighting, which I'm sure might hurt your feelings, but it does seem like, all right.
Not at all. It's actually something that I speak to my team about all the time. Like, our products need to be a work of art, right? Art doesn't just come in painting form. You know, art comes in all forms. There's music, there's acting, there's comedy, but even product design, it needs to be a work of art. That's what sets us apart from just another commodity lighting product, right? So I do think it's a work of art.
All right. Well, I was going to say you are moving a little, I won't call it commodity lighting products because there is still kind of unique Nanoleaf touches. Y'all just launched a bunch of stuff at CES. So I want to just get everybody like prepped. What are some of the things that y'all launched this year at CES?
So like you mentioned, they are commodity products. We have a slew of lighting products to kind of fill in the assortment for your home. So we have the standard A19 light bulb. We have a GU10, which is more like a downlight. Same with the BR30, which is a little bit bigger. We also have light strips and recessed ceiling lights. But even though the products are, I guess, commodity lighting, the actual experience that we put in is where I see kind of that artistic flair put in. And so, I think there's definitely a couple pieces of the puzzle. One is that they're all Matter enabled, right? Straight out of the factory. So we just passed Matter certification, which was really exciting. They operate using Thread, and they have our new Nala learning technology built into them.
Okay, we're going to talk about Nala in a second. And then you also have some lights for, I don't know what to call them, entertainment or TV lights?
Yeah, I think what people know us for a lot of the times it's the wall lights that we have, our Shapes product line, our Lines product line. We have a new product that's called the Skylight, and it's basically taking our modular wall panels and putting them on the ceiling. It works; it's directly wired into your ceiling. So if you want, you can have a single, a square light fixture in your room, or you could outfit your entire ceiling with these lights, and it's super bright. We also have what we call NanoLeaf 4D, and this is kind of our way of allowing our customers to be able to synchronize what they're watching on TV to all the lights within their room. And it'll allow you to kind of position all of your lights in a three-dimensional space and be able to do really cool effects, whether it's to music or it's to what's playing on TV, or it's just, three-dimensional scenes that you want to use on your products.
I guess we don't watch enough TV, but Kevin has those made by a rival of yours and he loves them. So maybe this is what I'll try out. Okay. So let's start first. We're going to get to Nala in a bit because that's interesting. But first, let's talk about Matter. We are fresh off the heels of doing our first Matter update. Kevin updated his Eve plugs and it was tough. And I don't think this is a knock on Eve. They were literally the first to come out there with a Matter end node. And it turns out that updating existing gear is really hard. So can you talk about kind of your philosophy around how y'all are rolling out Matter in light of how you thought Matter would roll out?
Yeah, I think for us, we wanted to avoid the firmware updates, mainly because, it creates chaos within the platform that you're connected to. Luckily for us, or actually unluckily for us, our existing products were not upgradable to Matter. We had to change some hardware within. But our new products, straight out of the factory, they support Matter. You could pair it directly with your Apple ecosystem or Google ecosystem, and you'll be good to go. But I imagine, the existing products that are on the market, you're going to have to ask yourself the question of whether you want to upgrade it to Matter or not, because for your experience, it doesn't make a huge difference. Obviously, there's scenarios where you used to be stuck in the Apple ecosystem. Now you want to use Google, and a firmware update could enable that. But I haven't tried it myself with some of these products. But yeah, I think the first release of Matter, there's probably some kinks around that they need to work out.
So does that mean, because I know that, like, for example, I've got the elements on my wall and they act as a thread border router. Does that mean those devices are not going to get updated to Matter?
So when we first started talking about it, we had the philosophy of, well, they don't need to be updated to Matter because, it already works with all the various ecosystems and it's not going to enable anything new for existing customers. However, after speaking to our customers, it seems like it's something that they really want. They want to understand that the products that they bought are future-proof. And so we did make the decision to add that into our roadmap to upgrade a lot of our existing products, whichever ones are capable of doing so. So our Shapes, our Lines, our Elements, in order to support Matter so that our customers feel like it's future-proof. And that's a work effort that we have planned for next year, or actually this year, I should say, because we're recording this in 2022, but you're hearing this in 2023.
Podcast time travel is a kick. Okay, so I should rest easy because eventually I could bring my existing NanoLeaf stuff, the newer versions, so the Lines, the Elements, the Shapes, up to Matter. But you're like, why would you? The functionality might still be the same.
I think that's, there are benefits of having Matter, right? The pairing process will be standardized. You'll be able to connect it to the various ecosystems without having to go through the cloud. There are benefits to it. So, I think the main reason that our customers use our products, a lot of times I just think they're using the NanoLeaf app to create some cool scenes and, play it to music and create an ambiance within their room. But if they want to go through Google or Amazon or directly through HomeKit and bypass our app, Matter does create a better path for that. So it does, like, I see it now a little bit more clear. And it is now part of our plans.
Yeah. And if I think about it, again, because I use my existing Nanoleaf stuff as art, it is almost secondary. It is its own thing in my home as opposed to like part of any routines. The only routine it's part of is a party routine. So there you go. Impress the neighbors, party time. Let's talk about Nala, because this to me feels huge and it feels exciting because I literally have been trying out smarter lights since probably 2014. Things like light bulbs with motion sensors in them that are trying to predict when I'm in a room to turn on. So explain what Sense Plus controls in Nala is for us.
Yeah, well, Nala, it stands for Nanoleaf Automation's Learning Assistant. And it's something that we've been working on for the last 3-4 years. And it's always been kind of our vision that smart lighting, as defined in the last few years, it's not actually smart. It's just moving your controls from your light switch to your phone or your light switch to your voice assistant. And smart lighting to us always meant, that it needs to have some sort of true intelligence and automation all kind of tied together in a very cohesive experience. And so Nala is kind of our way of introducing that to the world of smart lighting. So we have a series of lighting controls coming out, and they're called Sense Plus controls because they have a bunch of sensors all built into them. So it has a motion sensor, a brightness sensor built in, but it's also a controller for your lights. So there's various buttons to turn it on, off, change color temperature, or change color. I haven't seen that in the market yet, where they actually integrate those two together. And in my opinion, that's actually a big differentiator because, the future of smart home, it needs to know when to turn on lights for you and turn things off for you as well, without you having to, buy a separate motion sensor, configure it in some, automation with a different platform. I feel like that experience needs to be just out of the box, and it needs to just work. And I think that, over the last few years, it was difficult to achieve that because of, a lack of standardization across smart home, right? Before that, all these smart home companies are like, okay, I got to get it to work with Google and Apple and Amazon. And they all have a different way of dealing with basically a button or a switch or a sensor. And if you had a device like this, it would just show up as like, okay, you have a button in HomeKit, you also have a sensor, and you also have you have 5 buttons that you need to configure within HomeKit in order to support something like this. But I think now with Matter, it's actually going to make it a lot easier.
I hope that's true. So let's talk about the sensors. You've got a motion sensor, and then is it a lux sensor?
So yes, it is. The motion sensor, the first release is going to be a PIR sensor, and the PIR sensor, we have one that's battery powered, coin cell battery powered, and we have one that's wired into your wall. So the battery powered one, as you know, before Thread came out, there wasn't really a good option for a battery powered IoT product.
There was Z-Wave.
But then it didn't have its own IP address. It wasn't optimal. And so we've been, actually before Thread, we were using Bluetooth mesh. We were like, this seems to be the closest thing to something good for the smart home. But then as soon as we found out that, Thread was going to be a standard that the big giants were kind of consolidating into, we jumped right on it, and it became kind of the top priority for our company. So I think the timing is right. It just took a long time for us to get here, a lot longer than I would have originally anticipated.
Yeah, that's the story of the smart home, how I feel about it. So let's walk me through a use case. So I've got this switch. It's going to work with, it is, to be clear for people, there is a wireless and a wired light switch that has these sensors built into it. And that is going to control all of my Nanoleaf lights?
The way that we've kind of programmed it is so that you basically configure your house in various rooms. So if you have 3 lighting products in a room, you could add a button / a Sense Plus switch into that room, and you'll be able to basically have all the buttons as well as the sensor associated to all the lights within that room.
And those lights are not necessarily Nanoleaf lights?
At the moment, we're focusing that experience around nanoleaf lights, but we are looking to add support for matter lights as well. Right now, we just want to get it right with our products first. I think that there's still a lot of details around, what's going to be a fabric, and whether it makes sense to be built within Nanoleaf's fabric, or if it makes more sense to work within Apple, Google, Amazon's fabrics. So I think that is. I'm curious to see how that plays out in the long term with Matter. But yeah, a lot of what we've done is actually quite proprietary. So even though all of our products do support Matter, including our button and our sensors, but a lot of this experience is actually proprietary to Nanoleaf right now. You're asking about the use case. The way I see it is like you should be able to walk into a room and it should know what light you need and when you need it. So as soon as you walk into the room, the light will kind of slowly turn on. And depending on the time of day, so let's say you wake up in the middle of the night, you need to go get a drink of water from your kitchen or something. As you walk through the hallways, the lights should only turn on to about 5%, and it should be kind of like a really soft and gentle light so that it doesn't blind you. However, in different scenarios where let's say you're waking up for an early flight at like 4 a.m., then maybe you could override that with the button, right? So it's almost like you have all these various ways to control your lights. You could use your phone, you could use the button, you could use your voice assistant, and that will continue to train our system. But for the most part, it will go through a schedule that it thinks that you need at different times of the day. And as you use the system, it will learn more and it'll correct you, and it'll suggest these automations for you so that over time, you should get the right light when you need it. And when you're not in the room, it'll turn off the lights for you, save you money too, save you on energy.
All right. One final question on this. It sounds like this is going to be personalized to each individual home. So, like from a machine learning perspective, from a personalization perspective, what is happening in the background there?
We will set up a baseline for our customers. When you think about home lighting, there's going to be a couple different baselines. Like, we'll ask some questions around like, what time do you go to sleep? What time do you wake up? And what are your lighting preferences? Do you want something more colorful? Do you want just warm white? Do you want something that's more similar to like circadian lighting? And so we'll create that baseline for customers so that, and we believe that would get you about 70%, 80% of the way. And then as you utilize the system, it'll kind of learn to continue to adapt and adjust to get you to 80, 90% of what you want. I think you had asked me the question before, like, do you think there's still a place for light switches? And I do believe yes, because if you think about human behavior within a home, it's not actually that predictable. People do different things all the time, and you'll need a way to override it. But if you could get it right 80, 90% of the time, I think that experience actually elevates the benefit for consumers for buying smart light.
I once set up a motion sensor and the light in my parents' little, I guess we'll call it the toilet closet, I think they call it, the WC, in their bathroom. And it was a Hue light bulb that was red, and it would glow soft red at night when they went to the bathroom, so during certain hours. And they loved it. But Lord help me, if they wanted to get up and it was still on the wrong time, they would yell at me. So I feel you. I feel that people, when they experience truly smart lighting, they're like, holy cow, this is great. Along those lines, let's talk about the future of lighting, because you're coming out with products that I could install all over my house with the downlights and the ceiling lights. So what is your vision around that?
Well, I think that, if you look through history at how lighting has evolved within the home, and it starts with something like the candle, right? You have this glowing candle in the center of your room. Then eventually, Edison invented the light bulb, and they flipped it upside down, put it on the ceiling, or they hung it on the wall to create these these wall lights. And it created like a very similar tone. It looked like the candle. It just kind of glowed in this really warm white. And then you kind of fast forward a bit, then it turned into fluorescent tube lights. And there's kind of a look and feel to fluorescent tube lights. It had that blue kind of hospital feel to it. And that was basically the 80s and 90s. Then you fast forward a bit more, then they had the halogen lights, and every basement that you go into has these like kind of triangular beams coming out from the sky. And now we're in LED lights. Now we have great white light. You have cool white, you have warm white. They flicker a lot less than they used to. But the next stage is the introduction of color. And you'll start seeing that with, the early adopters are the gamers and the people that like to deck out their entertainment rooms. But I think that there's a future and there's a place for color in a way that actually accents your space, in a way that's done tastefully as opposed to making your house look like a brothel. And for us, being able to create that type of the actual light sources, as well as a way to control it in a tasteful way, I think that will create kind of that next era of lighting.
Yeah, I will just if you're going to try this out, y'all, buy some lights for your dining room area, wherever you entertain. Have some color that allows for pink lights, because everybody looks so amazing. I cannot tell you, you'll look amazing. Your guests will look amazing. Everyone will be so happy with just that touch of pink. Not garish. It'll be nice.
So the pinks and purples are definitely very popular with smart lights. But one of the things that I really like are the pastel colors and a lot of the autumn colors. It creates a much different effect than what you typically see being marketed out. Because when you think about RGB lights, you think about red, green, blue, neon. And then you think about gamer stations and lights splattered all over your room. And in some settings, that does look really cool, but it's not for every space. And to be honest, white light is very important. It's basically, the accumulation of all colors, and it's very functional. So it's how do you actually integrate color into your life in a tasteful way? That's kind of what we're dreaming towards.
All right. Do you have any, as our final thing before we leave, do you have any recommendations for people who buy this and want to experiment with color in their home?
Well, yeah, I was telling you, my favorite product is Lines. They're right behind me in my office. I think they look super slick. I think that they're really cool, and it's a good reflection. It's one of our flagship products right now, and it's definitely something that I'm super proud to be a part of.
Awesome. All right. Well, Jimmy, thank you so much for coming on the show this week.
Yeah, thank you. And, hope everyone enjoys CES, and hope there's a lot of really cool products that come out.
And that concludes this week's episode of the Internet of Things podcast. Please join us next Thursday, and don't forget to subscribe. And if you can't get enough IoT news, I would love for you to sign up at www.stacyoniot.com for our weekly IoT newsletter, where we explain all kinds of things that we don't even get to on the show. Once again, thank you for listening, and please subscribe.